Our guest today on Directional Motivation is Scott Haas, and Scott is the Talent Acquisition Manager at ThyssenKrupp Aerospace, which is a world-class supplier to the aerospace industry, and they work with companies such as Cessna, Rolls-Royce, Voight, and Bombardier, and they're based in Auburn, Washington. And in the role as Talent Acquisition Manager, Scott's focus is on the design and implementation of cutting-edge recruitment strategies, methodologies, processes, and tools that connect talent with opportunity on a national scale. Scott is also one that believes in giving back to the community and is a mentor and volunteer to the Boots to Shoes Foundation, which provides assistance to help veterans transition back into the civilian employment sector. Scott's prior experience has been varied, as he has been a regional human resource manager for the automotive industry and automotive warehousing, covering 3 states. He's also served in the HR function in banking, retail, and served in roles as manager of web development and design. His military career spanned 4 years as a U.S. Marine. He has a degree in organizational management and also is certified in human resources management as well. Scott, it's an absolute pleasure having you with us today. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to talk with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk to you and help out veterans.
Scott, for the benefit of our listeners, can you talk a little bit about your organization that you're working for now, the ThyssenKrupp, and then also maybe talk about your emphasis towards the veteran community and your efforts to hire from that community as well, and the efforts that you personally take to help.
Absolutely. For ThyssenKrupp Aerospace, I was given a mission beginning of last year to begin a talent pipeline for our production line, and one of the best ways to tackle that was obviously work with the local schools, but there's also a great resource here for us in the Seattle Puget Sound area, which is some rather large military bases. We have Joint Base Lewis McChord, which is Army and Air Force, and we also have a lot of Navy bases throughout Puget Sound. To me, with my past experience having served, I felt that there would be a great transition force dealing with these military bases, and one of the things I did was lined up our production line jobs, everything from material handler, material control operator, saw operators, machine operators, to what the military has with their military occupational specialty for the Marine Corps and Army, and ratings for the Navy and Coast Guard. Those are just military titles that translate over to what we do. And so I've focused our efforts with the local bases and nonprofits to assist us in our talent pipeline.
Very interesting. So, we've talked a little bit about directional motivation, the site, and of course we've talked in different conversations at this point, and then also you visited the site. What drew you to us, and what are your impressions of directional motivation, what we're trying to accomplish as well?
Well, what drew me to you was a referral from one of the soldiers I had hired, and having talked to you a few times, I just really liked the mission and the goal that you had set up, and wanted to be a part of that and reach out and find out how more I could assist you and support your goal and mission. Cool.
Going back to your employer, what brought you to the ThyssenKrupp originally? What is about the culture of your organization that drew you, and might be of interest to our listeners here that might be in the transition process right now as a veteran, or even someone walking on the street for that matter. What drew you?
Certainly. One of the things I like is I'm a bit of a history buff, and ThyssenKrupp has a long-standing history, albeit it started out of Essen, Germany. They have a global footprint. So with that, there's lots of opportunities to move throughout the organization. I like those opportunities. This role I'm in is a new role that didn't exist before. And so having that opportunity has been exciting. While I'm in a new role, there's always some other things that are being created and opportunities that are out there for folks who have the right attitude, demeanor, and kind of go-get-em attitude. So So I think those are some of the really exciting things about ThyssenKrupp, and they're constantly growing, and they're doing some future growth plans of just within the aerospace side. That's extremely exciting. I can't go into details on those, but it's just exciting stuff.
What I understand is that they have a lot of innovative technology that they're incorporating as well. Would I be right in what I've read, or
yes? No, you're
coming across from those articles.
You're absolutely correct. We're a third-party logistics supply chain management company, and it correlates to the military. What the military do is they move stuff. They move a lot of stuff, and they have to do it quickly. What do we do? We move material, a lot of material, and so those crossover quite often, and it's just a way of taking their previous experience and then parlaying it into what we do, and it's been successful thus far.
Mm-hmm. Good. So your background's kind of interesting because you've seen the employment picture really from both sides, that being a veteran seeking employment at one point, and then also now from the side of the employer. What advice could you share with our veterans and their families seeking employment? It's really competitive out there. There's no doubt about that. So is there some advice that you can share that might be beneficial to our veteran community?
Absolutely. The local military bases have great programs that help veterans transition out, and for some reason there seems to be an underutilization of it, and I think they need to exploit it and not be afraid to ask for help, and not be afraid to take advantage of these programs that are free to them as they're transitioning out. And then there are nonprofits out there that will assist them. It's not giving them a handout, it's giving them a hand up and giving them that opportunity to be successful. It's, everything from how to do an interview, how to dress for an interview, how to prepare your resume, how to do the research on companies. And so those are some excellent things that they have. And to be honest, to the listeners, I was kind of a knucklehead when I got out. I didn't take advantage of any of that. In hindsight, if I did, I think I'd be in a different spot. But we all have our roads to travel, and I just really emphasize this now when I meet veterans or those transitioning out to utilize this program, because once they're out, it's a little bit more difficult.
Mm-hmm. What are maybe some of the common mistakes that you see that veterans are making, maybe when they approach you, or stories or something like that might equate to what you see are shortcomings that military veterans are doing?
It may sound a little bit curt, and it's not meant to be, but some of the things I see with the younger generation, the junior enlisted, is they kind of have this entitlement mentality. They need to get that out of their head. They need to focus on how to make themselves competitive. They need to ensure that their resume is relatable to the civilian sector, because it's a very small percentage of the workforce who've ever served. And so demilitarizing the resume is a really key component. And what was the other part of your question? I'm sorry.
Oh, just maybe the common mistakes that are taking place, and maybe a story that would maybe reflect that, if you have one. I don't know if you do or not, but that would demonstrate where maybe they missed the mark.
Certainly. Actually, I can think of a young captain I had. He was in charge of an artillery battery, and for those who don't know, artillery, they're cannons, and they support the infantry in the combat zone. His whole resume was talking about dealing with the different type of artillery pieces that he had and ammunition. And he was a captain, so that meant he was in charge of a company of men, and that means he had to deal with logistics. That means he had to deal with what I refer to as the military term, but beams, bullets, and bandages. And I said, those are the logistics that you need to focus on. Because I said, unless you're going to find a job as an artillery officer, you're not going to find a job in the civilian side. And so it took a few times to coach him out of the militarized resume and change it over to the logistical component and how it would relate to the civilian side. But to me, that was prime example of why he needed to go to this program. While yes, he's college educated, yes, he's an officer, he should have taken advantage of that system because it would have given him that much more of a head start versus everyone else.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned, or in my introduction of you do quite a bit in the mentoring side, the Boots to Shoes Foundation. Can you expand on that just a little bit?
Certainly. The purpose of Boots to Shoes is not to hire the people that you mentor. It's to prepare them for the civilian side. And they're typically 6 months out from transitioning out of the military. That's either someone that's done their first enlistment or is retiring. I get all the folks that have retired or retiring from the service. What I do is I've worked everyone from a commander in the Navy for a nuclear submarine to Special Forces, and it's just kind of demilitarizing them, level setting expectations, and preparing them for what to expect in the interview, and most importantly, doing their research when they do their job search, to be well-spoken and to be ahead of everyone else, because that's something I don't see on both sides, civilian and military. Not everyone does their homework on the company.
You know, what, as an employer, what does that mean to you? You know, if someone, let's take both scenarios, both sides of it. Somebody just absolutely knows you like a book, that type of thing, versus somebody that's clueless. What effect does that have on you as an employer?
Well, it shows me their interest and their ability to think outside the box, do their homework, their follow through, their ability to dig in, and to me it shows that I'm going at a loss of words right now. It's
maybe self-initiative.
Yeah, it's self-initiative. It definitely differentiates themselves from the rest of the pack. It shows that they have the ability to go above and beyond what is required. And sometimes I'm asked questions that I'm like, I didn't know that about the company. But it's
so it's okay to stump the band, so to speak, huh?
Absolutely. I'm fine with that.
Cool. So when you're in the mentoring process, or as you're dealing with veterans, you know, are there possible sites and resources that are provided that veterans can make use of? You know, any recommendations that you have that way?
For the mentorees that I deal with, I tell them to utilize LinkedIn and how to best approach it. One of the things that we see, it cracks me up, is like this Special Forces guy I can think of. He, for those who understand LinkedIn, you can have groups that you're affiliated with. Well, he had nothing but Special Forces groups that he was affiliated with. I'm like, are you looking to stay within that community, or are you looking to get something out of that? And he wanted to get out of the community to do something different. I said, well, if you're focusing on something different, you're not doing it by these groups. I said, have some groups, but don't have all the groups. You want to, it's like, I'm affiliated with certain groups with the Marine Corps, but that doesn't mean all my groups are. It's like, my groups are affiliated with what I do. It's like, you need to affiliate your groups with what you want to do. And so, I try to get them converted over to social media, because that seems to be the latest phase. And so it's like, get on the bandwagon if you want to be employed, because this is how you're going to get noticed. And also make valuable connections. Don't just make connections with anyone. And so those are some of the bits of advice I give them.
And I've dealt with a lot of veterans now as well, you know, in helping them in their career transition as well. And network support groups are really important. You know, it's a brutal employment environment out there. And when I was talking with an individual yesterday within the military that they provide resources, that type of thing, and he said that what he finds is that a lot of people become discouraged when you know, the first one or two resumes they send out, or the first two job fairs that they go to, they hear no's. And he said that what they see is a number of people that actually drop out of the search because they get discouraged because they didn't hit the job right away. Do you see that too?
I do see that. I have a lieutenant colonel that he thought he could attend 1 or 2 job fairs and a couple of networking events and land a job. I had to kind of inform him that that's not how it works. You got to press the flesh, you got to submit online, you got to go to networking events and constantly meet people and get yourself out there and kind of open yourself up, which is not always easy. I completely understand why they won't always open up, but at the same token, they need to. I as a mentor, I try to push them out of their comfort zone to think about things differently, because you're not going to get an order to the next duty station. You are going to create that next order. Mm-hmm. So, getting them out of that mindset.
Yeah, I know that, and it seems like, I don't know if it's a bit more prevalent in the 18 to 24-year-olds, that type of thing, but there's many veterans that really struggle with that internal issue of reaching out for help. And I don't know, I've labeled it this way. I'm not a psychiatrist or whatever, but I call it kind of the self-sustainment syndrome, meaning that, the military's programmed me to be self-sufficient. I can do this on my own, that type of thing. What advice can you give maybe to provide, or advice that you can provide to these types of individuals or family members of a veteran, that they might notice these characteristics showing up, that they're not willing to reach out to anybody? Is there some advice that you might be able to provide in that type of scenario?
They need to get out of that mindset that reaching out for help is a sign of weakness or a failure. They need to understand that these services are there to help them, to make them better, to be providers for their families, and it doesn't mean that there's a deficiency in their character. And getting that out there, it's a tough sell. Yesterday, I was at the Marine for Life event in downtown Seattle, and it was employer heavy. I mean, there was myself and other major players from the Puget Sound there. Only 4 Marines were there.
Wow.
And we were kind of like, what the heck's going on? And so we were telling those Marines, you need to bring a Marine with you next time. Because the opportunities are there, but if you're not going to step up, we can't help you. And getting out of that mindset, that's my perception of what it is. Because I remember when I got out of the Marine Corps, I didn't want to ask for help. And it's, in my opinion, silly to even think that. It's there for you.
It's interesting because there actually are so many services available. And one of the things that we've done with Directional Motivation is trying to combine the military section into a one-stop shop, so to speak. And so with on our site, and you probably noticed that, there's interviewing tools and techniques and audio, video. We're going to be doing webinars to help, all kinds of different resources as well. And yet, what I find in working with veterans, when I engage in the conversation, and I give them the site, and I say, well, go to our site. Let me try and help you. And in a follow-up conversation, I'll find that, oh, yeah, I didn't get around to looking at it. And it's interesting, because the self-initiative part really has to take place. The opportunities are really out there. There's a number of opportunities with employers right now. Employers do want to hire. So the misconception that there's not jobs, there are jobs. What we're finding is that and you mentioned a little bit, and we're not here to beat anybody up, but you got to get out of that mental stage of entitlement, or that mental approach of entitlement, and take that initiative to really set yourself apart. And employers are looking for that. They're craving that right now. Would that be a proper assessment? Absolutely.
When we go to the military job fairs, you can tell those who are, sorry for the Marine term, very gung-ho, very, very ready to, take that next objective, and those are the ones that get hired on with us, and the ones that come up to us and say, what kind of job do you have for us? We don't have anything for you. There are plenty of people applying. We're just trying to reach out and help our returning vets. So it's I'm always trying to get people to go to different things. So it's a constant struggle.
Sure. Scott, it's interesting. In my book, I talk about a situation where a lot of times veterans will look at positions and they may not be at the level that they're initially seeking. But what I'm doing in the book and with the consultation that I'm doing with veterans is to have them step back for a second and encourage them to take a look at what this opportunity might provide. So it may be a step back from what you're initially looking for, but I encourage them to take a look to see a couple things and to review a couple things, that being, what does the company provide from a long-term standpoint? Is there growth, an activity that's taking place? Are there training programs that can help the individual move up in their career, even though it's a step back initially, but it could provide something from a long-term standpoint and benefit? And then also, what is the training and the foundational tools that are in place to help that person make that transition, and do those training systems, are they set up in such a way that they really embrace the veteran? And what I'm finding is there's a number of employers out there that have a very, their viewpoint is very open and receptive to hiring veterans, and so their whole workplace is really geared around that. And even though the workplace may be a step back initially, it's one that really loves to promote veterans and loves to kind of nurture them along. And would you encourage this? Am I on track for what, the consultation that I'm giving?
Absolutely. We have training programs in place for our production line, for material handler to material control operator. The material handler is a forklift driver. It may move around heavy plates of aluminum or titanium. And then our material control operator would be a cycle count, inventory analysis, stuff like that. And then we have our machine operators, which would be everything from CNC to water jet, and then industrial saws, cutting the metals. All those have training processes, and there are steps to advance into different roles. So that's why we always look for those that have comparable experience in the military and transition them over. And taking advantage of the veteran corps is just a great opportunity. When I came aboard, they didn't do this, so this is something that we've been doing in the last year. For me, I had seen other employers do this in similar fashion, and I'm like, there's no need to reinvent the wheel here. And so I've actually mirrored off of a few of our local Fortune 500 companies, and so because it works great for them, and it's working great for us, and so it's a win-win for all sides, and we're really excited about it.
What I think the term maybe in all this that comes to play when we're dealing with this type of conversation is flexibility, and the veteran, getting them in a mindset of being flexible and open to maybe some other options, as opposed to straight on, I need this, this is all I'm going to do, this is all I want, unless I get this, I'm not doing anything. And I'm thinking that the more flexibility, and what we're finding is employers are responding the same way, in that they're saying, hey, you know what, we need to bring some flexibility to the table too. And so there's almost a mutual interest on both sides that we're seeing now that maybe wasn't as prevalent several years back. Would that be correct?
Yeah, it would be correct. There's an understanding that there's a certain level of expectation from the veterans, and vice versa. I tell, when I go to the Marine for Life event yesterday, and next week I'll be at the ACAP event, that's the Army Career Alumni Program out of Joint Base Lewis McChord. It's getting them up to speed on what the expectations are in the civilian market, and then what we do, and explaining to them the opportunities that are there. They always want to know how long it takes to the next step, and it's really dependent on a lot of different factors. So they're exciting opportunities, and they can't have a particular time frame in mind. They have to show themselves, prove themselves that way through their actions and their work versus talking about it.
I always, when I'm counseling, I always tell them, do your absolute best, and you'll be amazed at what comes at you. In a growing environment, if you're doing your job and you're embracing the culture that's there, and taking what I'm a huge one on this in terms of talking to people and counseling, is taking ownership for wherever you're at. That area, that department, whatever the case may be, take ownership of that responsibility and show them that you have a vested interest in the benefit of the company, and they actually respond in a mutual fashion as well, I think.
Absolutely.
Scott, tell us about some of the opportunities that are currently available within your company, and maybe some things that might be coming down the pike in terms of opportunities, and why our listeners should stay in touch with you.
Absolutely. Well, we have locations throughout the United States, and the typical areas that we're constantly hiring for are in Wichita, Kansas, Santa Fe Springs, California, and then the Auburn area of Washington. And the typical roles, these are all our production line, are the material handlers, the forklift operators, the material control operators, the machine operators. And as I mentioned before, the machine operator consists of a saw operator, the CNC, and water jet. And those are constant openings because we've been growing. And it's great starting points for military and non-military. We've had college grads that have gone into these roles that have moved up through the ranks from lead to supervisor to manager. The same thing there for the military too. You know, it's there for the people that want that growth, and if those want to stay in those roles, there's opportunities too, and it's just a constant recruiting process to onboard these candidates. And they can always go to our site and apply there, and it's a great opportunity just to grow within ThyssenKrupp Aerospace, but within ThyssenKrupp as a whole.
Sure. And you mentioned going to your site and applying, that type of thing. What advice would you give to, in terms of the rules of engagement with an organization, not just your organization, but organizations in general? I'm talking in terms of maybe the space of time and following up. They send their resume. What type of time frames should they engage in where they show the interest and yet they're not driving you crazy?
So for me, applying online, don't call me just because you sent me a resume. I get several thousand resumes, so and I'm sure you've experienced that.
Yes.
Have the patience to know that you applied, and then if you hear from us, we will let you know what the time frame is for us to get back to you, and we'll plus or minus within that time frame, but don't call us incessantly to find out where we're at. It's tough. I'm speaking from my own experience. I did that in my youth and paid for it by not getting a job. So it's I'm understanding of it, but they need to realize that sometimes there's a one-man shop. Like, I'm a one-man shop for the ThyssenKrupp Aerospace, so I'm not always going to get back to you at your specific time. I'll get back to you when I can.
Sure.
So it's just having patience and understanding that it's a really competitive market right now, and people are faced with lots of competition, and they need to make sure they stand out from the rest.
Yeah, they need to, just kind of in a summary, they need to really, number one, have their resume right now. They need to be ready, engaged. They need to take and get out there, make themselves known, sending the resume, getting and doing the initial steps to be aggressive. I would encourage our listeners, and I'm sure that you would too, to visit our website, directionalmotivation.com, and for the interviewing skills and things like that to help you hone, some of the and bring to light the background that you have and that type of thing in the interview process. Scott, I've really enjoyed talking with you today, and we'll talk again, I'm sure, as we go forward. But any parting advice that you'd like to give to our listeners?
Well, absolutely. I appreciate your time and the opportunity to talk to you and share with your listeners in regards to the opportunities about ThyssenKrupp, working with veterans. Having taken a look at your site, Directional Motivation, really appreciate the heart and passion that you guys have behind this effort, and we'll be promoting that as I go to other events just so that they can become more aware of additional opportunities out there for them. I think it's a great service that you do, and excited to be a part of it.
Good. You know, I just view it as just another networking tool as well, just a help that you can use and resources. So yeah, I appreciate that. Our guest today has been Scott Haas, the Talent Acquisition Manager for ThyssenKrupp Aerospace. And Scott, I really have enjoyed it. Been very informative.
Thank you for your time.